80% of the population are much more concrete thinkers. You tend to see the tree first, and then put things together to get to the big picture last. Which means vision's the last step that you do. It takes a long time. You're better at organizing, details, tasking. Much more difficult for envisioning. People who are envisioning are really good at laying out things, but they never get anything done. Okay, so we need each other. But visioning tends to come from the weirdness and the conceptualness, because it's this picture of something, and then we have to figure out how to get there. So visioning's hard, because in groups of people, the majority of us aren't naturally good at it, okay? That's not a problem that can't be overcome through process, but just know this is hard work, and for some of you, it'll be harder work than for others. Now, having said that, today we're going to look at a few different things and work through it a few different ways. First, we're going to look at something called Reveal. Reveal was a survey that you were offered the opportunity to take. Probably many of you took the survey already. We have your results back. Pastor Steve's been thinking about them some already. We said we're going to present them today to you in this group and begin to think about how to work on them. They'll shape your vision. There's no sense carving out a vision of something and then finding out some things you didn't know and then trying to figure out what to do. You want good information at the front end and say, okay, if this is what we're at, what are we going to do about it? That's how you work your vision. So we're going to spend some time on that. We're going to spend some time on visioning exercises. I've got various ways to help you think about vision. You'll be doing that in your tables individually as well as in a larger kind of sharing. When you're done sharing, we'll share again. And then finally, after lunch, we're going to do some kind of discerning deciding about prioritization and how to move from A to B, so that when somebody does sit down and articulate a vision and some key things in your kind of long-term next steps, they're listening to all the stuff. And eventually, we're not going to leave with a vision today. We're going to leave with some of the stuff of the vision today, okay? Because this many people, we could wordsmith till we're blue in the face and it would still be like 5% done. So eventually, somebody's going to have to take what we got and work with it and then bring it back and say, this is what we came up with based on what you said. So it's going to be a leave, work on it, bring something back and say, here's what we've got. The goal is that you're coming to the end of a process where you've been paying a mortgage for quite a while, and you've got soon capital relief in terms of funds. And the question is, at the end of that chapter, now that that piece of your cash flow isn't being used for this anymore, what should we do with it? How do we use it to enhance the ministry of this place in the next chapter, since that resource will be freed up from the mortgage? What do we do now to do the next thing and use resources wisely to do something else? And what is our vision so that the something else we do is actually purposeful and contributes? So that's kind of the flow of the day. We'll take a break mid-morning, we'll take a break at lunch, and we'll be done around 2:30. And so far, weather's great. I mean, really, in terms of the roads, it cleared back out, and we should be fine for the day. The weather forecast is actually pretty good, a little dusting stuff this afternoon. But we should be in good shape. I think we'll have plenty of stuff. We got a good crowd of people. We all look still attentive and alert. There's caffeine for those of you who find me boring. And we'll just keep chugging along. Anybody got any questions just on the flow of the day? Clear as mud. Okay.
And everybody can still hear.
Anybody having trouble hearing? That's a whole other issue. It's getting very political once we get into visioning. We're going to do some things later in the day. And I just want you to be thinking about them. Some of you came with things already in mind. Facilities, a vision for your building. Some of you have had an exercise where I think Dave and Zira asked some of the committees to think about things, and you made lists. And so I got to see some of those. And there are some things that people think we should do to the building. Some of those are probably excellent ideas. We're going to spend time on that, so don't get caught up. When am I going to get to talk about my building? For example, we know that a lot of people already mentioned the kitchen. Okay? We know this. So don't get distracted when we're doing the reveal thing and say, I got to get something about the kitchen because this is my chance. You know? If I don't, no, we're not going to mess with the kitchen this morning. But we will get there. Or whatever you think. Ministries. What are we doing or not doing that either needs to be innovated or expanded? And related to that, what kind of staffing do we need to have? What's our vision for staffing? Do we staff the way we are? Do we staff differently? Do we add things in ministry and have staffing to do that? Do we work with volunteers? What's our picture here? How does that work? And then learning. One of the things about visioning in general is most of us don't know everything we need to know. We just don't. A lot of the problems with facilitating process is that when you draw out of people, a group of people, you draw out of their experience, but you also draw out of their limitations. So Einstein said you can never solve a problem with the mindset that created it. So often, working on a problem or an issue is something we struggle with, perhaps as Lutherans, it might be in our DNA. So it's not even an Advent Lutheran thing, it's like most Lutheran congregations have the same blind spot or the same pattern or whatever. We'll see this in the reveal material. So how do we learn something we don't know and get exposed to something so that we can build a solution that we're actually not even aware we need to build right now? For example, your doctor. Anybody here take statins? Anybody here not take statins? Okay. Your doctor knows about statins. And over the last 20 years, statins have become very popular as a way to change cholesterol patterns in people. They're learning a lot of things now about the size of cholesterol particles, and about proteins, and about inflammation. And so, if you had a certain regimen in 1992, 1997, 2002, around statins, it might be different today. There's new statins, there's even new patterns and stuff, and they're working on stuff now that's completely unrelated to what they were doing in 1992 in terms of what they think are the trigger points. Inflammation is a huge issue in terms of heart studies and things. Now, it wasn't really a big deal, but now anybody take aspirin on a daily basis? Yeah, that's for inflammation issues. Okay, that's a change. Now, why do they start aspirin? Well, they learned something. They learned something. Now, they may unlearn it, and they may change that. You know, in 2020, was it aspirin was a waste of time. Who knows? They're constantly learning and changing advice. Well, churches are that way too. We have to keep learning. We all kind of assume sometimes that the church just is what it is. I know what a church looks like. We just have to be better at it. But actually, no. Churches have to keep learning the same way medicine and pharmaceuticals have to keep learning, the same way engineering. Would you want them to build bridges today for the interstate the way they built the covered bridges in Vermont? Of course not. You want them to continue to grow and learn with the technology. Churches have to. So what do we need to learn? And a lot of times that means somebody has to inflict something on you, from outside, and say, one of the blind spots that you have is this, and if you just keep thinking with this, without this extra information, you'll keep making the same choices and it won't be any different. So part of my job as a consultant is I run around and I learn a lot. I'm not really smart in the sense that I'm smarter than anybody, but I'm exposed to a lot of stuff. And so I see and hear things from a lot of congregations and patterns, and then I share it. For example, I'm going to share one thing with you because I know it came up in things that will come up again. Congregations, how many of you would love to have a better youth group here? Anybody think the youth group is too big? Too many high school kids running around? Right. How many of you think doing better youth ministry is a really important priority? Okay, most of you. Probably a bad idea. Isn't that terrible to hear? It's probably a bad idea. Not because it's not right, but because it won't work. There's actually nothing you could do to create a decent youth group at this church right now, beyond work with the kids that you have in a way to do the best youth ministry with them you have, and have it trickle out, that they bring their friends. Not that they're not important, or that you can't do wonderful things for the kids you have, but overhauling youth ministry is probably not a good idea. Because the average 10th grader who doesn't go to church isn't going to wait for you to fix it. Right? Let's just be honest. How many of you got good clues for how to get an 11th grader to come to church who hasn't been? No, we're all lousy at this, right? Let's be honest. Anybody here good at getting 11th graders to come to church for the first time? No, but okay, so right away we've sort of admitted we have no expertise in this area, and our track record is poor. So, pooling all of our knowledge that we have, we could come up with a plan that doesn't have any fruit because it doesn't have any legs. So it's very easy in churches, because every Lutheran church that's aging wants more young people, to say we've got to do something about youth ministry. And you do, don't get me wrong. But working on the youth group actually isn't probably the tactic. You need to work on the kindergartner through 4th graders. Because you need to build families and start with young people who have control of their schedule and are still learning how to form patterns. And then as they become 5th and 6th and 7th graders, you need to strengthen confirmation ministry. And then as they become 8th and 9th and 10th graders, you need to strengthen high school youth group. That's probably like 5 years down the road. What you really need to focus on isn't high school kids, because the only way to have high school kids go to church is to have elementary kids go to church and like it. And parents go to church and have it be important for them. And there are almost no ways to do that inside of the experience of just random 11th graders starting to show up. It won't happen. You can work with the 11th graders you have to make it the best you can. And some of them might bring friends. So don't write them off and say, well, we can't do anything with you. You're just toast. We don't care. No, give them love, care, the best you can. But it's not the place to expand your program. It's the place to create good intergender relationships with those people. The place to expand is to build your foundation. So that's the kind of thing, when we think about staffing, our instinct is, because Lutherans have always had this in our history. Here's our history. Lutheran churches were immigrant churches where men went to work and women stayed home. That's the roots of our church. And that meant that everything we did was done by stay-at-home moms. We had our vacation Bible school staffed, we had our Sunday school teachers staffed, we had all of our youth things. It was all moms who did this, almost exclusively. Dads went to work and made money. Moms stayed home with kids. That was about 90% of the roots of our church. Very few working moms until the 60s. And our churches flourished. We had volunteer Sunday school superintendents and volunteer Sunday school teachers and volunteer, this was all women just about. And then in the 60s, multiple things happened. Immigration had stopped pretty much for Lutherans, and Norwegians are not coming anymore. We heard some discussion about that this week in the news. It would be nice if we send more Norwegians to America. This is a great strategy. But the reality is, Norwegians are not coming in big numbers anymore, right? And so the immigration strategy is not working. We're growing our own, and most of us aren't growing very quickly, right? We have some much smaller families. And the aging group of Lutherans, how many of you are planning to have another child? Okay, it's kind of a diminishing market. And so the entire pattern is gone. But in our DNA, we think, second graders, there should be a parent that's taken the charge of that. There's always been a parent that was in charge of that. It was always a volunteer. It's never not been a volunteer for like decades. We actually have it deep in our inside, like in our bones, that it would be wrong to pay somebody to do Sunday school with second graders. That you would never staff that. Don't any of these parents care about their kids? You know, that's just in our wiring. But we would never at this point, because we've given up on working with teenagers, think that having a youth director was a bad idea. A lot of churches have high school youth directors. Why is that? Well, we've made the shift, but not for kids. And the reason our youth groups are so small as teenagers is we have lousy children's ministries. For the most part, across the ELCA, children's ministry is not very good. The average Sunday school is dwindling. Kids are bored. Parents are saying, well, if there's not more kids here, I'm going to go find some church that's better at it, where I can have kids for my kids. So that's an example of what you have to learn and kind of get outside of yourself. There's a lot of those things. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them today, walking through, but I will kind of insert from time to time things I think you should mess with. Any questions just even on the children and youth thing? You get the idea? None of you are planning to have more kids, are we? Small population here. Okay, so we have to recruit, we have to embed, we have to rethink how we do ministry. There are lots of kids running around out there. Your schools aren't empty. They're just somebody else's kids. They're no longer our kids. Okay, I want to first exercise. Everybody take out a sheet of paper. There's paper in the middle of your table. And this is a practice exercise, but we'll come back to it in a different way later. So here's your first task. I want you to imagine, and maybe you don't have to, maybe you've got a partner of some form, a spouse, who you're still so madly in love with that this happens all the time. But in most relationships, there's a wooing period, a courtship period, where things are good. And then actually when your relationship flourishes, you kind of find those moments. For example, my kids got my wife and I dinner at EL Idea restaurant in Chicago. It means nothing to you, but it's $400. Okay? Now it means something to you. Holy, depending on your favorite expletive. That's a big present. Well, they do a 13-course meal. It takes 3 hours to walk through an ELID, okay? And so you don't say, well, go to that and go to a show. It's like, no, you're going to go to that. That is the show. Okay? It's one of those kind of restaurants. Can you start getting a picture? It's that kind of restaurant where you go, and the reason you went was to watch the whole thing unfold. 13 courses. I mean, they're little courses, but you imagine they bring this and they do that, and this is at your table, and then they bring this out, and it's this way, and all this stuff. And so it's like an event. It's like actually going to the theater for dinner. And 13 courses later, you kind of reel yourself out. And it's a BYOB establishment, so you bring beer or wine yourself. So we'll bring a bottle of wine and we'll share a bottle of wine. We'll have 13 courses and we'll get on the train and go home. Well, that's a very fascinating picture, and I can guarantee you